calling this meeting to order on Tuesday, October 21st at 7:04 p.m. The meeting and the approval of the minutes for our meetings held on the 23rd of September and the 6th of October, as we don't have a forum, and we'll move straight into the acknowledgement of visitors. So who do we have with us today?
We have Lydia Ansra and Taylor.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Has anyone received unless there's someone that would like to speak or in the audience, I'm going to keep rolling on through. All right. With that said, let's move on to the examination and authorization for the payment of bills.
And some to come in and sign and be a proxy vote, but the total considered was $673, $40.51. 5 special ed tuition,
Town of Swampscott.
Town of Swampscott's tuition.
With that,
Of $673,440.51.
all in favor? Aye. Okay, I'll get Beth to sign when she comes. Moving right into the superintendent's report.
All right, 2 or 3 items. On a personal note, I got fully cleared as of today to return to work in person after 6 weeks of something I don't wish on anybody, regardless of their situation in life. Catheter came out today. My blood numbers are where they need to be, so I'm a pretty lucky person, I think, for what I went through. I want to thank everybody, including those on the screen, teachers, for doing what was necessary to hold the school together and come back. And kids were all happy. I went into the cafeteria and the 5th and 6th graders were there, about 50 of them. I popped my head around the corner in a Bruins sweatshirt and I started pounding Levi's back. I just, and I don't cry very easy, you know. I'm their high school principal and didn't have stuff like that. No, they would go, Levo's back. So it was rewarding and reaffirmed why I came here. Green Team's official first day is tomorrow. There are 30 kids signed up, all the way
Yay!
from kindergarten through grade 6. Myself and Jose Garcia are the co-coordinators. We're going to tomorrow split them into 3 teams, so a younger group, a middle group, and an older group. And one group will come next Tuesday, then one on Wednesday and one on Thursday, rather than trying to figure out how we keep the kids fully occupied in there. We're also going to distribute them with some of the fundraising money. They'll all get a nice complimentary t-shirt. This is a kindergarten version. So this is youth small, and they'll all have that. So I think it's kind of nice to be able to add some class to it. We're then going to do a bucket of soil brigade, in which those 2 big piles of soil in Home Depot buckets will go from the piles into the raised beds. So they're all ready to go. Seeds are all here. We'll actually start planting seeds next week. Jose did an experimental planting of kale. It's already 3 or 4 inches high, but we've got peas and carrots and onions, all kinds of vegetables, as well as hanging plants. So we have marigolds, pansies, which come around Christmas time, part of the farmer's market with the sell those. So I think the kids are excited about it. I think 2nd grade was the winner in terms of the number of involved kids. I think there were 8 kids from 2nd grade. We're going to take part in that. Again, we're going to have food pantry, delivery with the Blue Lobster bus, the farmer's market, supply the cafeteria, and sort of learn how to run a small business, how you price things, put the proceeds from the farmer's market into, okay, now what are we going to buy? What can we buy? And maybe form a board of directors, elect the chairman of the board, and they'll hold a meeting to decide what the next planting's going to be. So it's quite exciting that that's coming together. And beyond that, just glad to be back, ready to go. So,
Moving on to the principal's report.
So our teachers have been working on their educator goals for evaluation. We did that by first doing a review of our MCAS data, with the presentation that I did for you. And us diving a little bit deeper into the curriculum piece of where the breakdowns are for our data. And that really helped us to look across all grade levels to see where we needed to focus. One area of identification that the teachers selected was writing, and really trying to embed writing into a lot of their curriculum that they're currently working on. So there's like an increase in that you'll see across the different grade levels, which has been really nice. So from there, they were looking at how they could better utilize some of our JES goals that we have. So they're looking at their win blocks and saying, like, how can we make stronger interventions for our students? So many teachers chose that as their goals for them professionally to grow, as well as moving student data and really looking and diving down deep into what the results are to see if we can actually move students forward more quickly with bi-weekly monitoring of progress. So there's a couple of different goals have gone different directions for people, but that's been, I would say, the majority of the theme is around improving our test scores and really getting kids learning the basic skills that they need to be successful in their grade levels. So it's been very, very rewarding for them. Their educator plans are the next steps. So, like, what are the action steps for us after we can say we want to set these goals, but the action steps are what is important. So they're using that along with what the educator rubrics use for the Department of Ed. So they're tying their goals in to make sure that they're meeting all of the expectations of 4 different standards for Massachusetts evaluation. And in doing that, they're also identifying, like, what would the evidence look like from me as an educator to show that this growth is happening. So they're making it so that the whole evaluation system actually has value to them, and it's not something that happens to them, but happens with them, and actually shows student success as well as growth in their profession. So that we've spent a lot of time doing this work, and really diving into it so that everyone feels a strong sense of ownership for themselves and where they want to grow, and it's not anything happening to them, but yeah, helping them. So that's great. That's been some really good work that we've been doing. We also had professional learning where we worked with the Star Renaissance group, which we use for reading and math assessment data, so that we can benchmark students. What we've discovered is that we're benchmarking for reading and math, but we aren't benchmarking for early literacy. So we really need to look into purchasing early literacy assessment so that we can then make sure that we're meeting the needs of kindergarten and first grade to keep them going, because that's where the focus needs to be, so that we can see where they're at and we can close or make it so there are no gaps if we're doing that. When we met with them, the great news is there's also a preschool version that the state of Massachusetts, has endorsed. So they give you the state is giving significant reduction in price, like $3,000, right, for us to be able to implement something so that we're closing any possibilities of any no access for children. Like, we want all children to be able to access literacy, so that actually helps to close that door for them, so that there's more equity and inclusion for preschoolers. Because they're finding that data, that kids who have preschool actually are scoring higher in achievement through research that early literacy exposure is beneficial. So we have that would really set us in a good spot. So we're working on that. I just got a quote from them actually yesterday, so we'll see if that fits in. We're trying to move some funds from one item to like, okay, that means we don't get this, we get that. So little juggling with the budget to do it.
I'm just curious, in terms of the dollar.
I believe, exactly, yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can pull it up in a second. Can I go back to it? Okay. And then the other piece, so we just had our Boo Bash this past weekend, and we had a lot of participation from teachers, which was really great. They did trunk or treat. So I want to thank our staff. I would love to thank Allie Mitchell, who is one of our ESP in second grade. She did a Christmas theme on her trunk. And then Jessica Puga and Nancy Cassidy did kind of a scary goblin out of one trunk. And Lydia Antrim was Miss Viola Swamp, because it was like Miss Antrim is missing instead of Miss Nelson is missing. Very cute. Yeah, and Heidi Fiore, also an ESP librarian, she did a Jurassic Park theme that was had smoke coming out. Wow, that was pretty cool.
It was so
She was in a little prize.
They were really impressive.
Yeah, and then a lot of families I want to thank too. There were several families who also participated, which was really nice to see. That was great. And then Kayla Harrington, she sold for the PTO the sweatshirts and Halloween Nahant shirts too. So she participated in that with my. So yeah, it was great. It was well attended. Lots of people. Who was sponsored by Dad, Johnny. I think that's the name. Sorry, I can't remember his last name. But he ran all the food station. He did the grill and a whole bunch of volunteers to support. So it was a lot of fun. Kids were running around in costumes and a lot of entertainment happening. Yeah.
So sorry I missed that.
So that's just a little bit about this month that and where we're at, but it's been good and all about that number.
So do we have any personnel updates?
Well, if I want later on, and we act upon the contract, we do have a OT contract. Our present OT is leaving on November 10th. Did a full-time job at Manchester, Essex, and we have consulted with an agency, the same agency that provided an individual potential person over the summer. Use that same agency, and they will provide our OT services connecting to the 10th of November. So we signed that contract today, and that will ease some of the dysfunction. Getting continuity. What if that no? Didn't get the other, see some of the folks in action. So there's that guy the other day, I sat in. Top notch. took me a long time to come to that firm conclusion, but I would have said that when I was teaching, that I was more important than what the principal was doing in terms of the direct contact with kids, and you could either make their lives or break their lives. And our teachers don't get enough credit for what they do. So, take every opportunity to state that.
Yes.
I have that total for you. So the Renaissance products and services total 13,355. The Massachusetts applied discount is 10,868. So the total, grand total is 2,480.
Ooh,
That's
very, very.
exceptional. A lot of digging, a lot of
Mhm.
contact. So I've been working very closely with Renaissance to try to work that through, and same with the curriculum director. Stipend positions, with Gabby and Taylor, and making sure that we're trying to get all the grades covered.
Good.
So, yeah, good. That's great.
Exciting.
Yeah, that's certainly good. Yes. Smoothing things along.
I know, there's only so much moving that you can do, as we'll see in a moment, as we go through the budget.
I hear you.
Which I'm gonna move the facilities use policy to the last item on the agenda. And we can move into new business. The approval of a contract for the JE Special Services Director and the first draft of the proposed 2026-2027 budget.
Maybe get the screen.
Sure, and I just want to feel Beth is on the call. Hey, Beth.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I'm not there. I'm in Revere, though.
That's okay. And thank you very much for joining us.
I'm coming.
I'm gonna turn this so that you can see this way as best you can.
Yeah.
I was gonna screen share. Rob, can I just
Oh.
screen share it?
Huh?
Can I just screen share it? I have it to screen share it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna do that.
Screen share would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Screen share, it's hard to project the.
And folks that are online, I will send this out to staff members by email tomorrow, so you'll have a clean copy of this so you can see it. If I don't, someone hold me accountable and remind me of that. So when Heather's ready and gets that booted up, shared. There are 2 tabs to this Excel sheet. And I did send it to you folks, so you have it.
Yes. You did, thank you very much. Oh,
This is a sort of little bit of a reduced version. There's a larger work version, but there's a lot of things that probably aren't worth putting out with everybody thinking about it, their assumptions and all that sort of thing. But this gives you a pretty idea of the per pass.
Yeah, it had me a little bit shocked at the proposed increase there. It's like, yikes.
There are ways to massage it down some, but when you get into the 7-ish% range, you run out of options, to be honest with you.
Oh, really? Where you want it up around 8?
And last year, even with robbing Peter to pay Paul or whatever it was from preschool and circuit breaker, that budget was down to a 2.36% increase and 112,000. This budget right here, as we'll see in a second, is an over 12% increase and 508,000 or 590,000. But it's a fully loaded budget, not with a bunch of dreams and pipe dreams and wishes, but some pretty essential stuff that we ought to be thinking about, like we talked about the last time, the literacy specialists, the increase in math and ELL person. That should have been full-time last year, to be honest, should have been part-time.
I completely agree.
So,
And I think I like the approach of like fully loading it.
so this is your, not your shock and awe version, but it's your, you didn't have to really worry about money, trying to put forth what's necessary in our mind as administrators and school committee members, I think, to educate the kids as best we can, then this is the version that I would present.
This is our
And it
ask.
just happens to have a lot of drivers in that. Some of those are special edits we'll see, and those you can't control. And the increases are what they are, transportation. Let's just go down through the list. You got that shared, Heather?
Yep, it's shared. Just wanted to turn.
The first half, this is the FY 27 Johnson Elementary School budget overview. Version 1 proposed budget of 12.32%, or an increase from FY 26 last school year. The increase would be $598,211. Note, FY 26 was 2.36, or an increase from FY 25 of 112,000. All salary adjustments are at 3.5%, as negotiated in Unit A and B contracts. I've always philosophically felt that to apply those same percentages to those who aren't union members. When the numbers happen to be low in the negotiated world, then I feel the numbers should be low in the non-contractual world. But the 3.5% got our support staff and teachers either up to or very close to a lot of their major competitors that might try to draw them away from Nahant. And if you fall behind, it's nearly impossible to catch up, because the numbers have to become so big that you have to follow the lead of what the market is for educators. So the numbers in here are 3.5%. There is an increase of 2 ESPs, and they were necessary to cover SPED IEP requirements. That's an increase of $87,000 of that 598. You might say, well, wasn't there a way to maybe adjust or share or whatever? There really isn't. Some of those kids have needs in which there needs to be an individual with them a large, if not the entire time. And the alternative would be out of district placement, which $87,000 would cover any out of district placements. You'd be over 100,000 before you started before transportation. So by having the ESPs properly deployed per their IEPs, that's just a necessity to have that.
So, what,
Yep.
can I ask,
You can ask anything you want.
those 2 ESPs, are they full-time? Or
There
part-time?
are some part-time ESPs within the group of ESPs. There's 11 total individuals now. For last year, we had 9. But there are 2 or 3 that are not full-time folks. They're .4s. They're the preschool. Preschool doesn't go all day. Some of the ESPs have a larger FTE to them, but their salaries are funded through grant money. So like Title I used to fund Lou Wallach's salary. Well, we don't qualify for Title I funds this year. So what would have come from that grant and gone to Lou Wallach has to go to budget. Somehow you have to find that money because his assignment is necessary. But there are, I have a list there. I'll send you folks that the master version that'll give you the out of district placements blacked out for names. They'll give you the ESP salaries and who they are. There's just a whole bunch of tabs across the bottom.
I think it's really important to highlight the Title I that we don't qualify this year
Yeah.
when this,
Yeah.
gets.
And
over to
we're
town
right
hall.
on the cusp. So the next year we might, we don't know. We're building next year's budget, but this year, right now, we were anticipating funding Lou through that. And we don't have it this year. And we didn't know that till summertime when the grant funding came out. And we are uncertain about next year. So you have to build it into the budget in some way. You can't take the risk that maybe Title I heaven appear again. It has to do with the number of free and reduced lunch kids, and if you don't make that cusp and that marker, then you don't get those funds. So Version 1 includes the expansion of the ELA math specialist to full-time from the present 0.4 position, and the addition, spelled wrong, of a full-time literacy coach and an increase of 10,000 in professional development. Those are the things that Heather had mentioned last time. The literacy coach is a placeholder in the budget of 75,000. It would be full-time. That would also include a health insurance. That'd be on the town side, but it would still be within the town of Nahant's budget. And the increase in ELL math specialist would be basically taking the present salary for that, doubling that, and then you'd have to hire the other preschool teachers. And you don't know where on the scale that they would be. So we'll have to debate and discuss and try to market as much of that improvement part of this budget as we can as time goes on. There was talk last year of, well, maybe next year there'll be an override.
Yes.
And if there was an override, then I think we ought to be putting forth what we really need and not being in the position we were in last year. We could somehow avoid that from happening.
I think the MCAS scores speak for themselves.
Yep. There is an increase in contracted services line of 40,000 to cover the cost of the new part-time contracted SPED director. We advertised for our own special services director. We had no candidates that we thought were a good match for Nahant. And we are now, as you'll see later, proposing a contract with a consulting firm who is lined up individual for us, but it's at a higher rate. So we not only have to adjust for that rate for this year, but we have to budget for that increase next year over what was paid to Mary. Mary DeGuardia was funded out of the SPED grant, fully funded. So you didn't see it in the budget, but the amount that it takes to fund the contract is 40,000 over that amount. And the SPED grant has no legs left to it. It has no ability to take any more hits. So and it already funds OTs and all that part counties in there in that budget, and it just doesn't cover that.
What is the period for the spec?
What is one?
The period of time that spec?
It's one for the grant itself. It's a yearly number. And it's usually pretty stable. It's not tied to number of IEPs or whatever. It's a fairly set percentage allocation. I mean, if we were in the threat situation of last summer, federal grants are all going to go away. We're going to send the money to the states and let them distribute it. We'd have had a lot of issues of how are we going to do this and how we're going to do that. That didn't turn out to be the case. But it certainly opened up the window of uncertainty, possibility. There's an increase in the occupational therapist contracted service line of 23,310. And again, we've just signed with a consulting firm for that. There's a 2.5 contractual increase in the Swampscott Public School tuition. And there's a couple of mediated agreements for kids who wouldn't necessarily be at Swampscott right now, but that's where they are placed, mostly because of their special ed status. So that's an increase of 66,941. Out of district tuition increase is 102,697. Out of district sped transportation increase is 30,113. Vocational center, I'll have to adjust that because we just heard yesterday what the October 1st enrollment was for Essex Tech. 2 years ago, it was 14. Last year was 11. This year, there are 6 kids at the Tech. There is 1 9th grader, 1 10th grader, 3 juniors, and 1 senior. So there is a sort of ante up to play in the Tech Center. That even if you had 1 kid, you pay an entry fee. of almost $200,000. But after that, you pay a percent per kid.
Okay.
And that will keep that number lower than 39,000. It'll probably be a flat number. But when I built this version of it, I had no idea what that enrollment was. We knew what our enrollment was. We didn't know what the other people's were, because it had to wait for October 1st. That becomes the official enrollment. So that's helpful, but it's only 39,000 of 590,000. This does include the use of another 115,530 of pre-K funds to reduce the overall budget increase. And you'll see it in the lines. It was fund part of the counselor's salary, fund part of the nurse salary, part of the custodial salary. And last year it was 22%. And we had assistance from the town hall as to where that might come from. And they identified several areas, but the real salary for the adjustment counselor is 78,000 or whatever. You'll see the budget will say 50,000, because 22% of what she's really going to be paid is going to come from preschool fees. And that is not an endless source of money.
It is not, hence my question to you the
Yep.
other day about the allocation, because I want it to be a methodology that is sustainable and not a numbers game.
It will work for next year, and it so depends on what the enrollment is at the preschool, which you can't guarantee what it is. It's a little bit lower this year. We did set a new preschool funding formula for the fees to go up 2.5% per year, and that's helpful. Where you didn't have any adjustment in the previous year. It was just a set fee, set fee, set fee. So there's at least some escalation in it. Whether it's going to be able to handle 22% over long periods of time, I would argue no. I would argue at some point that's a stopgap measure that got us through last year. And if there was an override, I would think we would say the true amount is that. And we're already funding the preschool teachers through that. We're funding 2 or 3 of the ESPs through that. It's not just that 115,000. The total that comes out of the fees is almost equal to the top of what you could collect. That's risky business. That's like you have your own account, you're trying to buy a car, and you're gonna afford the $900 Saab, whatever, and you're looking at it and go, I'm not sure that leaves anything for groceries or anything else. It's not sustainable, to answer your question.
Yeah, that's why I wanted.
It's not a model to go on.
No, that's why I want to develop a model like that.
But if you were to lower the percents, I think where they come from are justified, because nurse does handle preschool kids, custodians do.
Yes, and there's utility
But
costs.
should the 22 maybe be 18, 15? But then it's going to take that 12%, make it 15%, make the 590 is going to be 6 something. What goes up goes down. There's no way to adjust that.
No, I get it. I would rather have, the methodology be X percentage, that makes sense. And then like a one-time, dollar amount that's gonna be pulled from the account if it came to that. And not embedded in the 22%. If the true cost is 15%, 10%.
All I'm afraid that happens in that, one of the things I think I'm fairly good at, a number of parts of it, if you take that out as a one-time amount, then that's fine, but when you then can't take it out, you still have to fund everything else. It's just going to jack that overall bottom line up in the air. So I would almost rather be able to dial back that 22 back down to 10, 12% or something like that.
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
And
Yeah,
then
we're on the same
see
page.
where we're at. But this again is opening version. We have to get the finance committee, we have to get the selectmen. They have to discuss whether an override is a possibility this year. I'm sure other departments are in similar kind of you know, areas that they need to improve and have wants for.
But I would like to discuss this much sooner than wait until February, because then I think it's too late.
Well, I think the override discussion needs to happen real quickly.
Exactly.
And of course, your old town manager is no longer with us. There are obviously selectmen around and finance folks. Tomorrow night's selectmen's meeting has on an agenda item to appoint a new town administrator. So,
The person doing that job right now, Alison Nieto, she was Tony's assistant, so
Yeah.
she has a lot of prior knowledge just from working with him.
Right.
So that's a good stuff.
and she was pretty much the market agent for the 22%.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time.
Including what lines it should come from. Because we sat in a meeting, it was like, this is the way it is. And it was like, well, how about if we took 22%, this, there were like 8 or 9 lines that you'll see in a second. So, it just depends on what the overall lay of the land is. And the sooner we find that out, the better off. All right, last thing is, there is a possible, this budget not only includes that preschool amount, but it includes the 150 from circuit breaker. Because every year you take your out of district special ed kids. If a kid is in a placement that is over what is called foundation, which right now is $53,000. So if you have a kid in a out of district placement that costs $180,000 for tuition and $50,000 for transportation, which is not unusual. The circuit breaker law says, well, town, you ought to be able to handle the foundation in your own budget. And then over that, a year later, we will reimburse you if we have the funds at 75% for tuition and of the amount over, and hopefully 75% of transportation. This year it's 75 and 44. Last for transportation. Last year was the same way, but at the end of the year, the state senate and the legislature found money and they flooded the circuit breaker and went to 75-75. The goal was to be 75-75. So we actually had a little bit of a windfall of about $25,000 in July, which was the difference between 40% of transportation and 75. But again, the money comes a year later. So we have a fair number of kids out of district placements, and they're quite costly out of district placements. So the circuit breaker account is getting bigger, and you must spend it. Like if we receive it this year, which is 190,000, you either have to spend it this year, or you spend it next year, or it's gone. You got to return it. You can't just book it and keep holding it. They'll give you a 2-year window. You receive it, you either spend it, or you get the next year to spend it. So I've done an exercise, and you'll see it in that bigger spreadsheet that says the 150 we committed to this year's budget could probably take another 135. Now, I haven't shown that in that number of 12%. So that 135 can come out of the 12%, which then puts it down to less than 10%. And so there are ways to, as I said earlier, get it in the sevens. But that's with all that sort of magic going on. So let me show you the actual sections of the budget so you know what that is when you get it. It's by category, so school committee, superintendent's office, principal's office. The light green is this year's budget amounts. The blue is proposed amounts that I have. And these are just notes. Like here it says, note, applies 150 of circuit breaker and potentially more. Utilizes 150K of preschool funds to defray related costs. All salary adjustments are at 3.5% as per the negotiated agreements. So line by line, and we're not gonna just debate every line, I don't think, but auditing services. Last year or this year, we carried 4,435. This year, we're carrying 4,000, for next year's budget, 4,435. They didn't do an audit last year. Sort of never know when the audit's gonna happen. You've got to carry the number. And in this year's budget exercise, that was found money in a way. It helped defray some of the overall bottom line. Legal, 2,400 and 2,400. We spent way more than that in legal last year. Chris says, I have ways to take that from other locations. So I trusted that comment and advice and carried the same number for legal. But again, last year it was $24,000. Next category, superintendent's office has a 12,000 increase in the salary line. And that's simply an adjustment for the contract increase you gave myself. And then Sherry, not Sherry, Chris Katsos is in there. So that's one of the larger items. And over here, it tells you what that is. At 7,500, REL stands for me, and then 3.5%. And you'll decide that at a later time, regardless with regard to that. Longevity, that's Chris's longevity. Purchase services went from 500 to 1,000. That was trying to adjust for actual costs. And supplies went down 1,000, and that was also related to what we had spent. So that the overall increase in the superintendent's office line of the budget is 11,748 of that 598,000. The principal's office, the salaries, which are both Sherry and Heather, that goes up $6,700, and that's the adjust by 3.5. Attendance officers flat funded. Longevity, that's Sherry's. Supplies flat funded. Total principal's office increase 6,817. Health services. This is Cheryl's salary, and that's one of the very first areas that has the 22% reduction. So this year's budget carries 67. Next year's carries 69. That is not her real salary in either of those years. The real salary is over here, 86,091. So the difference that's coming from preschool funds to fund Cheryl is almost $19,000. She still gets her salary, but it's this from the budget, that from the preschool fund. Okay, so any of those lines that are tan, that's what's happening there. Purchase of services flat funded, supplies flat funded, health services $2,300 increase. Regular full-time employees. This year is 679,277. Next year is 852,877. That's an increase of 173,600. And I put in the label big increase. What that is I blamed Heather, which is what it's supposed to be. That's Heather Castanway's added literacy coach at 75,000 and a halftime reading interventionist. Take Katie Pastor, make her full-time, 35,000. So of that 852 versus the 679, the new employee funding is 110,000, right? So yeah. All right, so that'll be the discussion we'll have to have as we get into other versions. Substitutes up a little bit, that's just to handle the actual costs. Sped teacher salaries, that's the increase per contract for that individual. Sped aides, 136 to 223. It's the increase of 87 that I mentioned, quote, big increase. And it's not something you have control over. Technology, that has our increase in the salary of $4,000, a new individual in that position. Otherwise than that, software is up, but hardware is down. There's a total increase in there of, 262 in the teaching and materials line. So that's the really big total increase. Professional development, that was the increase of 10,000, even though it says 6. I went with what we spent last year, added the 10 to it, which made an increase of 6. School textbooks, we didn't spend that much in that line, so I reduced it. I think a lot of work now is done with software and not done necessarily with textbooks. So there's a $5,000 increase there. That subcategory is down 5,600. Library is up less than $1,000. Student body salaries for stipends, that increase reflects the percentage increase for the stipends because they're within the contract, but also the addition of what position Jose is in, which is the greenhouse $5,500 stipend. I don't take a stipend from my co-coordinator. It goes to individuals on the staff. Purchase of services flat. School guidance, that's the next one that the preschool comes and gets. That's Riley Edmonds. She's not a $54,000 employee. She's a $70,000 employee, so preschool is paying 15 of that. School psych and SPED. Been there, no speech. That's a salary increase. Occupational therapist. That's just the result of having that contract and being able to get an individual. That's an increase of $23,000. And there's really not a choice on that. So that's called a big increase. Contracted services used to be a bigger number, and that was reduced last year. It's now 90,000 because it adds the 40, which is the amount to cover the new sped director. The next one is the school custodial department. That's a salary situation where the 22% is taken for Jose and James. Their total salaries combined are 112,000. So that's 25,000 basically. That comes from preschool. Heating and gas, that's 22% of that comes out. Electrical services, 22%. Telephone services, 22%. We are using natural gas for the greenhouse, so we had to carry a line for that as opposed to zero. We're estimating that $2,500 will be the cost of heating the greenhouse in the winter. School grounds and maintenance, basically flat. Building maintenance reduction, and that was versus what the spending was. So we didn't spend that over those previous 2 years. So there was an area where looking for where you could reduce was hard to justify carrying that exact same amount. We weren't spending what we were budgeted for. School equipment maintenance, same argument or same statement. Rental lease of equipment. Tuition, junior, senior high school. So this is Swampscott tuition, 66,000. It's the 2.5% increase plus some mediated agreements that are 23,000. But that's set. We have one more year of a tuition agreement with Swampscott, and then that needs to be renegotiated. So next year's budget, we know what the number is, and 2.5 is really reasonable for what the going rates are. Sped tuition, tuition for private schools, increase of 102,000, but that's applying 75 of circuit breaker. So the real cost is the 102 plus 75. Tuition for the collaborative, which is the North Shore Consortium, is the same. Sped transportation increase of 30,000. And again, that applies 75 of circuit breaker. So if we're able to go to that another 130, that's where that will go. It'll go on tuition and transportation. Public school transportation. This is the last year of the bus contract with Healy Bus, and there's an increase predicted going from 178, because their contract was either 3 or 5 years with the same amount every year. Now we've got to go negotiate again. And I doubt they're just gonna say, oh, just give us the same amount, give us the last 5 years. So I have built in an increase, and the note is need to negotiate contract for regular ed student transportation. Essex North Shore, that's the one that I feel confident based on the enrollment only being 6 kids, not 11 like last year or 14 the year before, that we can probably flat fund that. So that will take that 598 down. And bottom line is last year's, or this year's budget is 4,854,411. And that was an increase of 112 over the year before, or 2.36%. This year, the total of all those columns is 5,492,653. That's the 598,211, the 12.32% as compared to what it is this year. So that's the first pass at the budget. And again, it doesn't apply that circuit breaker. Even in my other version that I'll send you, there's nothing about, let's take a little more from preschool. I just said that's really all that can handle. And the kind of debates we'll have is, can you handle both the literacy coach as well as the increase in ELL math specialist? Or you have to make a decision there. And that's for later discussion. I don't want to play politics with that.
Hey, it's wonderful to see you in person. Welcome home. And a question about this. Last year we talked about getting a math interventionist. And I didn't think we pulled that off because of the budget, because we didn't want to ask for the bread or anything. Were we gonna, am I wrong? And were we gonna have a math intervention?
We do
person?
have a math.
You did get a math.
What we did was take Katie Pastor,
Oh, right.
and
Okay.
instead of her being 0.63,
Yeah,
she is now full-time. So she
in
does,
this year's budget.
she does preschool and then does
I
the
see.
ELL
Okay.
master. We wanted a full-time. What we settled for was 0.4.
Are we gonna be able, is there a full-time math in this?
This includes 2 additional situations.
Okay,
One is moving that ELL math specialist
Yeah.
to full-time.
great, okay.
And then we'd
I
have to
understand.
find a part-time preschool teacher.
Yep.
Because Nancy Caggiano is supposed to come back,
Right,
but we need the other position because Katie would be in the other position.
and Katie would still, she'd be full-time, but she'd still be math ELL. She doesn't want to
She
be
would
just
be a
math.
full-time
It's
math
math,
ELL. She'd have no preschool connection.
Okay, and then we had, okay,
And then
all right, ELA, okay.
what the budget carries is, and we also proposed a full-time literacy coach.
Yep.
And
Got that.
between those two, the 75 and the 35, 110,000
Right.
of the 598, you're gonna have
Yeah.
to wrestle with numbers and discussions.
Yeah.
I don't think we should really show our cards now and talk about that. I have a theory, but I don't think it's fair for me to put that out there right now at all.
Is 70 enough, is 70,000 enough for a literacy, a full-time literacy?
It depends on where they are on the scale. It's 75.
Okay,
So I'd have to look at our scale, probably starts in the 50s. It's probably a master's degree, step 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a fully loaded top of the scale individual. And we don't let that cloud the candidate we look at. We're going to advertise, hire the best candidate.
yeah,
And if they happen to be step 10, way over here on the right of the scale,
Right.
and their salary 103,
yeah,
well, and that's what it is. Then our job is to find the
Figure it out.
difference somewhere
Okay.
else, rather
Alright.
than saying,
all right,
we can't go over 75.
yeah, that's what I was listening for.
It's a
Great.
placeholder. It's a
That's great,
placeholder.
yep,
What we used to do when we hired all the teachers at Rockville, we said M7. And then sometimes we
yeah.
we
Higher,
we were
lower.
better because we hired a bachelor's step 3 or a master's step 4, made a little money, and sometimes we had somebody who had a CAS and they were top of the scale, but they were the best person, and we just figured in a $13 million budget, if you couldn't find that differential, you were pretty much a hurting unit if you couldn't do that.
So
So you weren't here for the first sort of blush of it, but this version here, I think got sent it, was a 12.32% increase.
Yeah, I heard that.
$5.98. So
Yeah, I followed, I had to get gas, so I went to the cheat sheet.
And version
The
two,
executive
I
summary.
mean, the only thing I would bring, like say the next time in version 2 is an adjustment for that vocational situation. If I feel confident about the circuit breaker, I think we could put the 130, you know, the 150 plus the 130 to make 280 of circuit breaker. Because you could look at who's in placements, what they're gonna generate, and what's there now, what was the balance and what's there, and it's an account, but it's not a true savings account. Just say, don't touch it. You have to spend that a year later on those placements to defer the large cost of those. That's the way the circuit breaker law is set up. So I feel confident we could add the 130, so that it's gonna take the 598 minus that 39, minus the 130, and it's gonna make it a 4 something. But it's not gonna make it $100,000. It's not gonna be a 2.36, it's gonna be in the sevens when we get to a version where the only other decision you have is, do we do both the math specialist and the expansion of the ELA? Or do we defray it and hope to do it in a subsequent year? Those are discussions we'll have to have once reality sort of gets us. But beyond that, I don't think you can find nickel and diamond in supply lines.
No, it is so neat.
You've got
Yes.
negotiated contracts, you've got kids in special ed placements that rightfully so, that's where they need to be, where there's a $200,000 increase of that amount. And that we have to be
Realistic.
in a total, that's justified mode in saying that's the cost for those kids who get their appropriate free and public education is in those placements. And people need to understand that.
I think the finance committee understood that. I really did get the sense last year.
That was what really drove our issues last year, and it's not quite as much, but it's still there. The state has approved a 3.04% increase in all the private out of district placements. They give that to you right now at this time of year. So if they're at Manville in Boston, if it was 147, this is what that was. And we have 2 children who are in that placement, 2 147 tuitions, plus 60-some thousand transportations. For over 200, it's gonna go up 3.04.
So we pay that out. And then we apply for circuit breaker, and then we get 75% back if we're lucky.
Over what's called foundation.
Yes.
There's a number that adjusts every year.
Yeah.
This year it's $53,498.
Yeah.
What that says is,
Is that how much Nahant pays? That's the town?
well, it's how much they say your capability is of paying.
That's your share.
Your town
And
share.
then beyond that, you still gotta pay it.
Yeah.
But what they'll then say is, if we have the money, that difference between foundation and that number that you have,
Right, the bill.
we'll give you 75% back on tuition a year later.
Yeah.
And we'll try to give you 75% on transportation a year later.
Is the first 75 for the tuition guaranteed?
Nope.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
all
was- I was
subject to
cautioned
appropriations.
by
Yeah.
My old finance person in Rockwood would say, Rob Lego, you understand that 3 years ago, all they did, and it was during some tough, financial times, that they only funded circuit breaker 32%. You built a budget with 75%.
Yeah.
Well, that's the law. I was here, it was 32%.
Yeah, when you
We
look
should've
back at the
been-
appropriations for the last 5
It
years
may
or
have been
so, we do an
really-
average.
Good at the tuition.
Yeah. Okay,
And that's, I think, pretty sacred,
okay.
barring an economic collapse. It's the transportation one that the goal is 75. Like, for example, last year they went to 40 something. And then at the end of the year, somehow the legislature found money and fully funded transportation.
Yeah.
And went to 75. So we got an extra little amount in the summer of over 20,000. That adds to our savings account that we hadn't planned for, that then we have a balance in. This year, we're getting 197,000. We had 130 for a balance to start the year. Put those together. That's why I think the 150 and the 130 you can handle. Next year's prediction, because of the kids in the placements, those high cost ones weren't fully in place last year.
Okay.
But the money comes for them next year.
Mhm.
It's, even if you set transportation at 40 and the circuit breaker for the tuition at 75, you get over 400,000 circuit breaker coming in next year.
Yeah.
That's why I feel confident we can take the
Mhm.
150, and that's really not like the preschool shuffle game. It's what you're supposed to do with that money, and you can't keep it.
Yeah.
Well,
So
what
it's-
happens if a kid like
It's
that-
fair to say next year we could go to 285. Year after that, the kid may not be at a high district, and you'd have to say, we can't do the 285 yet. But we're not gonna have the fuel. We're not gonna have that amount.
this came up in another section of my life recently, but what happens if, because last year was lean, like, we pushed hard for that full-time position, we couldn't get it. And you were satisfied that everybody was like on the page, we just couldn't even have it. So if we had gotten another student last year that had those significant needs and needed to go to school like Manville, what if we couldn't afford to outlay the money? Like, we didn't have it up front,
We would have had to
150,000.
do it on the finance committee, and their reserve would have been,
The town raised it, okay.
we needed
would have
$180,000.
because of-
And actually, the town was offering up in our sort of spreadsheet operations, over $100,000 for those high cost predicted overages for last year. Not for a next year's budget, but just to get through last year. Because what we had budgeted versus what we were really expending, needed the finance committee to do a year-end transfer. I don't remember exactly what that number is, it was over 100,000.
We have no choice, we have.
And then we built the budget with that 22% of the preschool fees, this much of circuit breaker. We negotiated, I think, fair and reasonable contracts, treated our employees properly.
We sure did.
And here we are. Last year was 3.25, and the second and third year were 3.5.
Yeah, you and Patty and
And
teachers did a
when
lot
you
of
look at that sort of like state spreadsheet formula we bought, the average increases across the state were in the mid threes collectively. There were some fives, there were some sixes. There wasn't a whole lot of twos. There was, the sweet spot was in the mid threes. So I felt good sort of looking in the rearview mirror of this when we got done, because we negotiated fairly early when we got done. We didn't spend meetings and meetings and meetings. We got to yes pretty quickly, and it played out that we were in the sort of the bullseye of where other folks were and kept our employees competitive. And I think it shows by the folks that stuck with us and are still with us, and otherwise people look, make decisions sometimes that they have to do for their own personal and financial reasons. And if we talked about it earlier, if you fall behind in that world, there's no catching up. Or you just have to do it so bizarrely that
Kind of what
it becomes
the
real
mess that
shock
we're
and
in
awe.
right now.
You have to stay with the market. And so anyway, that's the first version.
Can we do this for version 2? Like the changes you want to make that you just discussed? And then I do want to get back to looking at all of the costs to make sure that we're allocating everything possible to preschool that should be allocated to preschool. Like, should any of the occupational therapists or any other therapists
Probably, but
be
wouldn't
out?
the bottom sort of like, when you got done at the bottom, the calculator, wouldn't it be the same number?
Maybe, but I
Yeah.
want it to be reasonable. I don't want it to just be
Yeah.
like, okay, here's this
Yeah, we didn't
arbitrary,
select
who,
those
we
ones.
did it.
We
And,
didn't
and
select
that's where I'm going with this. It's
Why
like,
they were
okay,
handed to us.
it's like,
So, yeah, I can make an adjustment and say, all right, it's, 17s from these 15 lines instead of 22 from 8 lines.
yeah,
I can make that change.
I want an allocation for all of them. And
There's
whether
a
that's
lot- I mean,
based
you-
on
you could
head
argue
count.
that- Could argue that some of the principal salary, she's oversees preschool too, should, even though she gets paid the full amount, that some of it comes from the preschool account. Matter of fact, part of her contract says that she's in charge of preschool. And the contract is labeled out for,
I would,
and there's
I
this much
but I
more
would
for
agree
preschool.
with that. And this is.
Same thing with the superintendent.
I would agree with that as well, right? Because that goes hand in hand with honestly looking at tuition as well.
It's gonna optically look fairer where it's, how it's being allocated, but that bottom number is gonna be the same, I think, keep you in that percentage. And, it doesn't have the ability to expand beyond that, because the fees just aren't there. I looked at it and said, I bet you we can take another 40,000 preschool. And I ran the, what's the balance, what's the kids, who's coming in? And I said, no, can't do it. Teacher salaries go up that are funded from that, ESPs go up. And then that whole 115 had to be inflated by 3.5. And when I got done, it was equal to what the income was for the tuition. There wasn't any more give to it. But yes, I can address those lines. And it will look better, maybe market better.
Market better, also really give a true cost, right? That's where I'm getting going. It's
Yeah.
like, what is the true cost of running a preschool program? And are the tuition fees adequate to cover said costs? Because we've never really looked at it that way. I know we did a
Yeah, all we did last year
2.5%
was add the
increase,
2.5% estimate.
but what is the true cost? And are we covering the costs?
I will make a stab at it the best I can. Yeah, I mean, almost all those lines can say, yes, electricity is there, yes, heat is there, but without going right in there, but a lot of those lines, you couldn't argue the preschool has an effect on that. You could not argue that. So, yeah, I'll make a version two. I will fix the Essex Tech one. I'll probably go up in the circuit breaker, and what you'll see is a version two that's optically better than what we just talked about, plus pulls it down and probably tickling 8%, which is 7 something.
Then the next step is I'd really like to meet with town hall.
As soon as we have a new town administrator,
That'll be coming up.
then, which is tomorrow night, I believe it's on the agenda, then, I think we should. But,
You need to do it now, because what we're proposing at the end of the day, as you know, is
and
an
maybe there's a
override.
way to include some key select board folks, some finance committee folks.
Yes.
Say, let's not wait till December and January.
Or February, and then, you know, the books are put
Oh, I think that-
together, and then, you know, it's too late. to put
And
it
I
on
called
the
Allison,
agenda.
yesterday, they had the town hall monthly department head meeting. And I asked her to stay after, I said, budget right now, we're looking at, without any real bells and whistles in it. There's not a lot of, boy, I wish we could have this, wish we could have that. I don't think you put the literacy specialists as a wish we could have. I think that's a we need.
Yeah.
And it's 12.32%.
Probably.
Sorry, I mean, you can look at it as well as I can. And she was okay with that. But, I mean, even with an override mentality with, sort of administrative type folks, reality is when voters would support an override or not. What's the size, what's the purpose of it? What's the
why do you
new-
need it?
what's
I
the new
mean,
thing that you
as a Nahant voter myself, I'd want to know the whys, right?
I mean, I went through one override on board, and, we had set budgets so that it was set up that you could survive on what they gave you. They gave you a certain increase in the base amount. And then you built a budget around it. If it was higher, well, then sort of collapsed on it. And we were charged with, when they gave us that money, you had to have it survive 5 to 6 years. Then we would look at an override, refuel it, and then another 5 or 6 years. That you could predict when an override was necessary and what size it had to be. That vote passed originally by 10 votes. They demanded a recount and it passed by 8. Well, my wife, myself,
We're too big.
every teacher in school, every kid that had graduated from Rockport got a, hey, why don't you get an absentee ballot? Support your old high school.
Yeah, it's gonna be a
And they
campaign.
put in their votes,
Yeah, it's a
and
lot of work.
it passed by 8 votes. And they're
Traditionally,
still living off that right now. I've been gone 5 years now. And they're at the point where they're running out of fuel. Because the amount the town will give them isn't enough to sustain the school budget. And that's the biggest driver. It's not DPW, police, fire.
but traditionally overrides have passed. And there's been a lot, because I've been here a long time. And the school was always supportive.
Okay. So we don't have to like remind people at home for it and having a vital.
I think that helps.
It's just not a
There's a lot
guarantee
of-
what
yeah.
you're doing in base.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they should automatically start at school because their kids are gonna go to.
They should.
Right. I mean, if you don't, if your school, especially in a town like Nahant, is not, thriving, then like, we're hurting the future of Nahant's families, not gonna move, right? It's already hard enough with some things, I don't know.
And that a lot of times they blame the senior citizens. And I found that everybody is very supportive across the board, whether it's a young family or an elder that's been retired for years.
That's
They want a good school system.
Great.
I think the idea of having that sort of like think tank kind of meeting that has
Yeah.
maybe not a quorum, but
I
you don't have to
agree.
convene a joint meeting, but you have 2 reps.
2 reps from
2
each.
finance.
I think we
committees,
need to do
2
it.
school committee folks, the superintendent,
What's this
finance
committee?
person, town administrator.
A meeting?
Together and talk about this budget.
Yeah, this budget.
And I think we ought to do that
Sooner rather than
either right
later.
before Thanksgiving or right after.
Yeah, I heard you on the phone. So that. I mean, I'm happy to be involved. Yeah.
All right, so that's version 1.
Let's do a random week.
Now moving on to the approval of a contract services of the new JES services.
Yeah, I sent it out to folks with a copy here if you need to see it. A highly experienced individual who was a former superintendent, former special services director, was located by a consulting agency, the Commonwealth Consulting Agency, and offered up to us for a total of 355 total hours, which is equal to the same time commitment that Mary DeGuardia had, for a total of 88,750. That, again, is that differential is more than what the amount we had on the table coming from the SPED grant from Mary. So the increase in that has got to come in this year's budget somehow. We're going to have to find that, and then in next year's proposed budget. And she's already got the file that has all the IEPs in it to review. She would, if approved tonight, I will make sure that I get contacted with her. She will then complete a review. She will officially start her assignment next month.
Where was she a superintendent? Oh, Carlisle.
Central Berkshire
Oh,
school year. She was there 5 years.
That sounds like a lot.
Yes, that's.
A lot of experience. I think I sent you the resume too.
I saw it.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
We advertised, we interviewed some folks. They were not good matches for Nahant this time. So she's also a Massachusetts lawyer in special education. But part of the offer was
oh, wow,
she
that's
could
great.
go into special ed law.
I know,
Um,
it saves a little.
sort of a
That's
little bit of a
great.
conflict there.
Yeah,
We already
I
had
guess
one we deal with. We worked with Tim Zesson until we said, now we just look at the special sort of part of it.
And that's a conflict. I can't
Because I'm
see
not
how that.
sure that would have worked out.
Mhm.
So what you would be asked to do is to motion and accept the contract, which is not with the individual, not our employee, with Commonwealth Consulting Agency for the service of a special education administrator for a total of 355 hours for the remainder of the year at a total cost of $88,750. There's a clause at the end that if we, for some reason, need more time near the end,
Mhm.
we can seek to negotiate that as long as she hasn't developed other commitments that would prevent that from happening.
This is with Commonwealth, what was the name?
The Commonwealth Consulting Agency,
Mr. Rodriguez.
and that is run by
I do.
a former superintendent.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah, I've heard of her. Yeah, that's great.
Kristen Rodriguez runs the consulting.
Yeah. That's what I said. So you need a motion? I'll make a motion to accept the proposal made by Rob with Commonwealth Consulting Agency for a total of $88,750.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Actually, Heather sort of got the connection with Kristen Rodriguez.
That's great.
That's how we were. I
Thank you.
didn't think there would be sort of a consulting agency that brokered special services director.
Here we
But,
go, good to know.
Thank
There
goodness
is.
for LinkedIn, good connection.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Okay, so now let's go backwards and finally talk about the facilities use policy changes.
Sherry's at home cheering, I think.
Oh, woman. So I'm going to turn it over to you because I know you initially put together some time ago, analysis of the facilities use rates.
So with the proposal, I remember where we left off was that the rates you wanted to go run past each one to see how much money it was actually making us, so that we were thinking about our utilities and we need to have the custodians being paid. We don't want to lose money on our otherwise we don't have that to do that. So the whole idea is just making sure that locals can still use the facility. But if things are for profit, then we would want to look at what our rates are because they were so low previously. Off the top of my head, I can't remember, there was another category in there. Was it like,
Nonprofit, Nahant Youth,
yes,
and then civic community.
right, so civic community would stay at a no
In
charge.
charge.
And then we would, keep, I think, I don't know if it went up.
So like the Swampscott football that uses it, this would be them, nonprofit.
Yes,
it'd be not
nonprofit.
you. Civic community would be like the senior center wanting to use a bigger space. Like that.
Categories, so civic is like
Oh,
PTO or,
Burn school.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So like your nonprofit use are your basketball team.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
say $20 an hour is a bargain.
Oh, yeah.
I think, did you look up
Mm.
what the other rates were? So
So it's
they're like 85 in Swansford, I think. And I don't know if that went up this year, but that's what it was. We initially looked at this in the summer. so Rob and I talked about it going up to 65, but then I know our first discussion was that was still low, and we think it needs to go a little bit higher. I think with the increase of utilities and costs, it's something to consider.
Would you think that $75 was actually?
I think so. I mean, if the others are 85.
Why not set it like Swampscott? We have Ocean Views in Island.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you make that decision, but I really think that-
Swampscott and set it.
I think it should be the same as Swans.
Me too. They're golden though.
Adult soccer clubs, okay, adult basketball, leagues, yoga, fitness, and boot camps. We use it as a full.
there is the reason I'm pushing for it is we have a list of people who are very interested in using our facilities
God.
that we just keep putting off. We talked about having them come in at the rate in the last meeting, and Sherry was very adamant about like, I can't start then telling people rates changed and that gets crazy. She's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to deal with that problem,
Mhm.
so.
How about 80?
Okay, done.
Right,
Auction. 80.
80?
80?
I was gonna say 85, but I'll do 80.
100.
Yeah, but you also want to be equitable.
Yes.
So you're saying, keeping it 0, keeping it 20.
Are we gonna keep the 20 for the youth stuff?
Yeah,
It's all hard, it's all hard.
Okay, so 80 for these adult basketball players.
I'm open to 80 or 85. I really.
That's really good.
You
Because
can
people can-
I'm fine with that.
have a motion.
I'd like to offer a motion to increase the facilities use rate for-profit other to $85 an hour for the gym, the cafeteria, and classroom. And keeping the rates the same for civic community, no charge, nonprofit, Nahant for $20.
Second.
Aye.
Have your rates.
Great.
There you go.
Hey, appreciate that.
Now we can go back up to the reading and the approval of the minutes from our meetings on
Sorry, Jean.
the 23rd of September and the 6th of October.
Oh, I can't do those, I wasn't here.
I have copies of those if
I
anybody
think
needs them.
so, yeah, it was 2 in a row.
I have copies if folks need them.
She can't vote.
I can't vote.
She wasn't present at those meetings.
Oh, that will be great.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Sorry.
That was gonna be my question. I lost track as to.
Not at all.
I came in with my knee and go around. I don't know if that was the number. I know the last-
Minutes, right?
October,
Yeah.
am I on the minutes? Like October 6th, absolutely not.
I know, I wasn't here for the last
Are
one.
you on it?
Oh, no, I wasn't here for the 23rd.
Oh, she wasn't,
I
okay.
was in Cambridge.
All right. So we don't have to look, Rob. We're gonna table that for the next
Okay,
meeting.
well, this, the marathon.
We will table the formation of the JES Strategic Plan Development Committee. And are there any future agenda items that people want to
Do a
add?
version 2,
Oh, yeah.
and, maybe behind the scenes, between you and I, after tomorrow night, we could solidify a think tank.
Yeah.
Roundtable discussion
Well, absolutely.
somewhere. Propose that, come back and maybe report on it.
If there are any individuals that people think we should be part of instance that are on the board of selectmen or finance committee.
He was the chair of the school committee, but the first override passed for the school in the
Oh.
town's history.
That's great.
So he might be. Yeah, I would like to be some.
I think that was going to be that.
And I'm not gonna warn him.
It's gonna be like, oh, Daddy. All right, well, if there's nothing else to discuss, could I have a motion to adjourn this meeting at 8:29?
Motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:29.
Second.
Aye.
Thank you so much for those that are
Okay.
online.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night.
Sorry I was late.
Thank you so much.
It's hard to.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.